So I want you to imagine a situation. Just picture this. You're sitting at home,
Yeah, totally relax.
right? You're comfortable, maybe looking out the window or, just staring at your desk at work. The room is perfectly quiet.
And then it happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Suddenly, a sound just shatters that quiet. The phone rings.
Oh, yeah. That sound.
You look down at the glowing screen and, well, you see an unknown number. Or maybe it's a number from an international office.
Right.
And you realize in a fraction of a second that you have to answer this call, but you have to do it in English.
Which is terrifying for a lot of people.
It really is. I mean, I want you to think about what happens to your body in that exact moment. Your heart rate spikes.
Oh, absolutely.
Your palms might actually start to sweat. Like literally, you feel this sudden tightness in your chest.
Yeah, because your brain is releasing cortisol, right?
Exactly. The biological response you're having is exactly the same as if you were suddenly facing a physical threat.
Like a bear is in the room.
Right. A telephone bear. And the most frustrating part is, well, you've studied English.
You've put in the hours.
Yeah, the vocabulary words are sitting right there inside your brain, neatly organized like books on a library shelf.
But the library is closed.
The lights just turn off. The moment you pick up that phone and open your mouth to speak, your mind goes completely blank. You are paralyzed.
It's so common.
It is. So if you have ever felt that way, I need to tell you right now, you are not alone.
Not at all.
It's not a sign that you're bad at English. It is a completely normal, universal human experience.
Yeah, it really is.
And the reason it happens is actually kind of fascinating. Because when you talk on the phone, a massive piece of the communication puzzle is just, well, it's erased.
You can't see the other person's face.
Exactly. You can't see those micro expressions around their eyes. You can't see their hands moving. And you cannot read their body language.
Which is huge.
It's massive. The visual context that humans have relied on for thousands of years to understand each other is just gone.
Yeah, it's just you and a compressed electronic voice in your ear.
And the pressure of silence.
Right. It's an incredibly unnatural environment for the human brain.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't evolve to communicate as, disembodied voices floating through the air.
No, we definitely didn't.
And that's exactly why we're exploring this today in our deep dive.
We're going to fix it.
We are. We're looking at how to navigate the telephone using simple key phrases for beginners. But we're doing it through the lens of psychology and strategy.
Right.
And I want to reassure you right from the start, the goal here is not to give you a massive, heavy grammar textbook to memorize.
Oh, please no.
No, because memorizing rules is actually part of the problem.
Wait, really? The rules are the problem?
Well, yeah, because you don't need to have flawless academic English to make a highly successful phone call.
That's such a relief to hear.
Right. Our mission today is to build your spoken English confidence and, to lower that cortisol level in your brain.
Keep the bears away.
Exactly. And we're going to achieve this by stepping away from traditional word-by-word translation and moving towards something called natural chunks of language.
Chunks. I like that word.
Yeah, chunks. They're basically small, pre-assembled groups of words that native speakers use automatically.
Okay, so it's not individual words, it's groups.
Right. When you internalize these chunks, you bypass that panic translation process.
Because you don't have to build the sentence from scratch.
Exactly. You don't have to think so hard because the words are already built and ready to go. They just flow out.
That concept, it completely reframes the challenge. The problem isn't a lack of vocabulary.
No, it's not.
It's the cognitive load. It's the heavy lifting our brains are trying to do in real time.
Precisely.
So let's explore this deeply. Before we even simulate picking up the phone, we need to analyze the psychological weight. Like, why does phone English feel so incredibly heavy?
Yeah, it's a burden.
It is. I talk to learners all the time, and they describe it almost like carrying a boulder on their shoulders.
Well, the psychology of the phone call is fascinating because it's where linguistics meets the fight-or-flight response.
Right.
And the panic usually stems from two deeply ingrained misconceptions.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is the illusion of perfection.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Learners often carry this belief that they must construct a grammatically flawless sentence before they are allowed to open their mouths.
Like they need permission from a grammar teacher.
Exactly. They imagine that the person on the other end of the line is sitting there with a red pen ready to grade their performance.
Which they aren't, obviously.
Right. But they think one misplaced verb tense means total communication failure or worse, harsh social judgment.
Yeah, they feel like they'll be laughed at. What's the second misconception?
The second misconception is a mechanical one.
Hmm.
Under the pressure of silence, learners often revert to trying to translate word for word from their native language.
Right, like trying to swap out every single word.
Yeah, they try to build English sentences from scratch, kind of like a mathematician solving a complex equation.
Oh, that sounds exhausting.
It is. They think, okay, word A plus the past tense of word B plus preposition C.
But human conversation doesn't wait for equations to be solved.
Exactly. By the time they finish calculating the sentence, the moment has passed.
The silence has grown awkward.
Yeah, and the conversation has moved on.
I remember experiencing that exact phenomenon. You're just sitting there in this agonizing silence for 5 or 6 seconds.
Which feels like an hour on the phone.
It really does. And you're desperately searching your mental dictionary for the perfect verb, and the person on the other side finally just says, hello, are you still there?
And then the panic doubles.
The pressure just compounds itself. You realize you've taken too long, which makes you more nervous, which makes translating even harder.
Right, it becomes a vicious cycle of anxiety.
How do we break it?
Well, that's why the traditional strategy of learning single vocabulary words and grammar rules falls apart on the phone. We have to change the mechanism entirely.
By using the chunks.
Yes. Instead of translating single words, we must learn to use chunks. I want you to think of chunks like prefabricated building blocks.
Okay, like Legos.
Exactly like Lego bricks. Imagine you're building a house out of Legos. If you have to make the plastic, mold every single tiny bump, and then build the wall, it takes forever.
Right.
But native speakers don't do that. Native speakers have giant pre-connected blocks of Lego. They just snap them together without thinking about the individual pieces.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, a chunk is a group of words that live together so intimately in the language that they function as a single unit.
Okay.
When native speakers answer the phone, they aren't processing grammar. They're just handing you a pre-assembled block of sound.
So spoken fluency improves dramatically when learners start listening for and reusing these blocks.
Exactly.
Let's make this tangible for the listener then. What does a chunk actually sound like in practice? How do we identify one?
Let's model one right now. A very common chunk used to introduce an explanation is this. The simple way to think about it is...
The simple way to think about it is...
Right. If you analyze that, it's 8 words long. But notice how I didn't stop to assemble it.
Yeah, it flowed out all at once.
Exactly. I didn't think about the definite article or the infinitive to think or the preposition about. My brain stored it as one smooth, continuous piece of linguistic software.
The simple way to think about it is...
Yeah. You can take that exact chunk, memorize its rhythm, and use it in 100 different conversations. It's a tool ready to be deployed.
It's almost like a vocal reflex rather than a constructed thought.
Right.
But this brings up a massive concern I hear from learners constantly.
What's that?
They say, okay, I understand the Lego block concept, I have the chunk, but what if my pronunciation of that chunk isn't perfect? What if I have a distinct, heavy accent from my native language? Won't the native speaker just be confused anyway?
This is a profound fear, and we really need to dismantle it immediately. There's a massive difference between clarity and accent perfection.
Okay, clarity versus perfection.
Yes. I want every learner listening to absorb this. Your goal is comfortable intelligibility, not sounding like a news anchor born in London or New York.
So it's okay to sound like where you're from.
It's more than okay.
Yeah.
The human brain is incredibly good at deciphering accents. An accent is simply the acoustic fingerprint of your history.
I love that, an acoustic fingerprint.
It is. It's a beautiful indicator of where you come from and the other languages your brain has mastered. The person on the other end of the line does not need you to erase your identity to understand you.
They just need clarity.
Exactly. Clarity means hitting the right syllables and not swallowing the ends of your words.
Right.
As long as the basic architecture of the word is clear, the accent is irrelevant. You do not need to sound like a native speaker to be a highly effective, highly respected English communicator.
That is such a vital distinction. The goal is to be understood, not to be invisible. We are aiming for connection, not perfection. And speaking of connection, before we dive into the actual timeline of a phone call, let's establish a baseline with 2 fundamental vocabulary words regarding the telephone itself.
Good idea.
Because these words have a surprising amount of history.
They do. It helps to ground ourselves in the physical reality of the tool we are using.
Yeah.
The first foundational word is dial, D-I-A-L.
Dial.
Yeah, as a verb, to dial means to input the numbers to initiate a call.
Right.
We tell people, let me dial his number right now.
It's actually a wonderful example of how language outlives technology.
Right.
I mean, we all use flat glass touchscreens now. We just tap glass. But we still use the word dial, which comes from the physical, circular, rotary dials of early 20th century telephones.
Where you had to physically spin a wheel for every single digit.
Exactly. The physical wheel is dead, but the verb survives.
Language is a museum of human habits. It really holds on to the past.
It does.
So the second foundational word is connection.
Okay, connection.
Right. In the context of a phone call, connection does not just mean emotional bonding. It refers to the literal, invisible electronic bridge between your device and their device.
The actual signal.
Exactly. It describes the acoustic quality of the airwaves.
Yeah.
So if a storm is disrupting the cell tower, or you're driving through a tunnel and the voice is breaking up into robotic fragments,
Yeah.
you have a bad connection.
Ah, a bad connection.
Yes.
That distinction is going to be incredibly important later when we talk about panic and misunderstanding. So we have our vocabulary, dial, and connection.
Right.
We have our psychological armor. We know we don't need perfect grammar or a native accent. We just need clarity and chunks.
You're ready.
Let's move to the physical act. You have dialed the number. You are listening to that rhythmic ringing sound.
Ring.
Yeah, and then the silence breaks. Someone answers. We are now in the first 5 seconds of the call.
This is a crucial moment.
It is. This is where we have to say the word hello.
Yes.
Arguably the most common word in the English language. It seems impossible to get wrong.
You would think so.
But on the telephone, the acoustic tone changes the entire meaning of the word.
It absolutely does. Tone is the silent dictator of the conversation, especially on the phone.
Because we can't see each other.
Right. Because visual cues are stripped away, your vocal cords have to do the work of a smile, a handshake, and eye contact all at once.
That's a lot of pressure on one word.
It is. The way you deliver that single word, hello, instantly signals to the other person what your intentions are, what your mood is, and the trajectory of the call.
Let me demonstrate what happens when cognitive load crushes the tone. Often, a learner is so focused on just surviving the interaction that they read the word hello in their mind like they're reading a list of ingredients.
Right. Very robotic.
Yeah. The intonation goes flat and drops at the end like this. Hello.
Huh.
It's just a downward vocal fall.
Huh.
Hello.
When you deliver hello with a flat, falling tone, you are sending a massive amount of unintended data.
Bad data.
Exactly. A falling intonation in English signals finality, exhaustion, or even hostility.
Wow.
Yeah, if you answer the phone and just say hello flatly, it sounds to the native speaker like you're annoyed they interrupted you. It's the exact opposite of an invitation to converse.
So how should we say it?
On the telephone, especially when answering an unknown number, English speakers rely heavily on a questioning tone. You raise the pitch of your voice slightly on the second syllable. Hello.
Hello. It sounds like I am genuinely asking a question.
That is because, functionally, you are.
Really?
Yeah. When you pick up a ringing phone and offer that rising tone, you are not just greeting the person. You are deploying a highly compressed chunk of meaning.
What does it mean?
That rising pitch is secretly communicating an entire paragraph. It says, I am physically here, the connection is working, I don't know who you are, please identify yourself, and I am receptive to what you have to say.
That is wild. You managed to convey all of that complex social negotiation with 5 letters and a slight vocal lift.
That's the ultimate efficiency of language. The melody does more work than the letters.
So the connection is established with a rising, hello, now the ball is in the caller's court.
Right.
Well, we have to introduce ourselves. How do we navigate that? Because I imagine it shifts depending on the social landscape of the call.
Exactly. Context dictates the chunk. Let's delineate between a casual personal call and a formal professional call.
Okay, casual first.
If you're reaching out to a friend, family member, or someone you have a highly relaxed relationship with, you use a very fast, casual chunk. You say, hi, it's Jack. Or, hey, it's Emma.
Hi, it's Jack. It's incredibly brief.
It is.
But what happens if the stakes are higher? What if I am calling a doctor's office or trying to schedule a meeting with a new corporate client? We need something with a bit more structural weight.
Right. In a formal or business environment, we upgrade the chunk to be slightly more professional and grounded.
What's a chink?
The standard structure is, hello, this is Jack, or hello, this is Emma.
Now let's stop and analyze this because this is a major intersection where learners often take a wrong turn.
They do.
A very common instinct for a learner, drawing directly from the logic of their native language, is to translate their existence literally.
Yes, I am.
Right. They call a bank or an office and say, hello, I am Jack. It feels correct because they are Jack. But why does that sound so abrasive or strange to a native English ear?
It's a fascinating quirk of English spatial awareness.
Spatial awareness.
Yeah. I am Jack is grammatically flawless,
Yeah.
but linguistically it feels deeply philosophical.
Like you're in a movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you say I am, you are declaring your existential reality to the universe. It sounds like you're making a profound statement about your identity.
But a phone call isn't philosophy.
No, it's not. The telephone creates a strange third virtual space. You aren't physically in the room with them. You are a voice emanating from a plastic speaker.
So when a native speaker says, "This is Jack,"
They're using spatial language. They're essentially saying, this voice that is arriving through your speaker right now belongs to Jack. Yeah, it draws attention to the medium of the phone call itself. It acts as a verbal pointer, locating your identity within the audio connection.
that makes profound sense. You aren't announcing your soul. You are identifying the audio signal.
Exactly.
This is Jack. Hello, this is Emma. It feels anchored. Let's turn this into an immediate physical practice for our listeners.
I love this part.
We are big believers in the physical mechanics of speaking in this deep dive. So we're going to do an exercise called shadowing.
Shadowing is a technique used by polyglots and simultaneous interpreters. It involves listening to a native speaker and echoing their words immediately.
You're trying to perfectly match the rhythm, right?
Yes, the rhythm, the pauses, and the linking of the sounds. It trains the physical muscles of your mouth to move in English patterns.
So we don't want you to just listen to this explanation intellectually. We want you to feel it physically.
Yeah.
How should they practice this specific chunk?
Okay, I am going to say the phrase, and wherever you are listening, whether you are in your car, doing the dishes, or sitting on the train, I want you to whisper or speak it out loud.
But there's a trick.
Right, yes. The crucial mechanical tip here is linking. Do not chop the words into isolated islands. Do not say this is Jack.
It sounds too robotic.
Native English speakers are lazy. We slide words together to save breath.
Lazy in a good way.
Right. The S at the end of this slides directly into the IN is. It becomes one blended word.
This is.
This is.
This is.
Okay, take a breath and try it right now. Hello, this is, and insert your name.
Go ahead.
Hello, this is. Did you do it? You have to move the muscles. It feels entirely different when it leaves your mouth.
It really does.
Okay, so we have conquered the first 5 seconds. We answered the unknown with hello, and we successfully placed our identity into the virtual space with this is Jack.
We survived the land of
We survived. Now the mission begins. We didn't call just to announce our names. We need to reach a specific target.
How do we transition from our introduction to requesting the specific human being we want to talk to?
This transition requires careful navigation because it involves power dynamics. You are about to ask the person who answered the phone to do work for you, to go find someone, or to transfer the line.
We have to be polite.
We must move from stating a fact to making a polite request. English culture places a massive premium on linguistic politeness, particularly in interactions with strangers.
Let me highlight a weak language choice that ignores this cultural rule.
Okay.
A learner calls a corporate office, a receptionist answers. The learner has their goal in mind, so they just state the goal directly. I want to talk to Sarah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when I hear that as a native speaker, it triggers a slight defensive reaction. It sounds demanding, perhaps a bit arrogant, or even childlike.
Very childlike.
It reminds me of a toddler demanding a toy. I want a cookie. It lacks social grace.
You're picking up on the lack of mitigation. I want is a declarative demand.
Yeah.
You are stating your internal desire, but you are offering zero respect for the other person's agency or time.
You're ordering them.
Essentially, yes. To upgrade this, English relies heavily on modal verbs to soften the impact. We use questions instead of commands to create an illusion of choice, which is the cornerstone of politeness.
So what is the architectural structure of a polite chunk here?
We abandon I want entirely, and we shift to asking for permission. The solid, reliable chunk is, can I speak to Sarah, please?
Can I speak to Sarah, please?
Right. Or, if you want to elevate the politeness even further, you soften the modal verb by moving it to the past tense form, which creates psychological distance.
How does that sound?
Could I speak to Sarah, please?
Let's look at the acoustics of that. Can I speak to Sarah, please? It literally sounds softer.
It does.
The sharp, demanding edges are sanded down. It's respectful.
Exactly. And notice the mandatory inclusion of the word please at the end. Can I speak to someone, please? It is a universally applicable chunk. Whether you are calling a mechanic, a lawyer, or a school, that chunk works flawlessly.
Now, I want to explore a really fascinating anomaly in English telephone behavior.
Okay, lay it on me.
Let's say I execute this chunk perfectly. I call an office, a woman answers, and I say, "Could I speak to Sarah, please?" But plot twist, the woman who randomly answered the phone actually is Sarah.
Ah.
How does she identify herself? Because if a learner tries to construct the sentence logically from scratch, it becomes a chaotic mess. Let's do a mini routine to show how unnatural logical translation
Let's
sounds.
try it.
You call me, and I will be Sarah, but I will answer using strict literal logic.
Ring, ring. Hello, could I speak to Sarah, please?
Yes, hello. What a coincidence. The person you are currently seeking is me. I am the Sarah you desire to talk to, and I am on the phone right now.
Okay, stop right there. The cognitive load required to build and process that response is entirely too high for a fast-paced phone call.
It felt ridiculous.
It did. If you try to explain the logistical reality that you are the person they're looking for, it sounds robotic and strangely formal.
So how does a native speaker compress all of that information into a natural response?
English relies on a concept called ellipsis, where we simply delete words that are obvious from the context, leaving only the absolute core of the message.
Just the core.
In this exact situation, the magic, universally accepted response is just one single word. Speaking.
Just speaking. One word doing the work of a whole paragraph.
Just speaking. It is arguably the greatest gift to an English learner. It is instantaneous, it sounds wildly confident, and it requires zero agonizing over subject-verb agreement or tense.
Let's unpack the linguistic mechanics of why that one word works. It seems almost too simple. What is the hidden sentence behind the word speaking?
The hidden full sentence is, I am the person who is speaking right now.
Right.
But because the caller already knows they are looking for Sarah, and they already know someone is speaking, the native brain aggressively trims the fat.
We chop off the subject and the verb.
Yes, we drop I am, and we just throw the present participle speaking back at them. It confirms identity with brutal, elegant efficiency.
Could I speak to Sarah, please? Speaking, it's like a secret handshake.
It really is.
Okay, so we have mastered asking for our target, and we know how to confirm our identity. But telephone calls rarely go exactly as planned.
Very rarely.
What happens when we hit a wall? You ask for Sarah, but Sarah's not in the building. The plan evaporates. I know from talking to students that this exact moment is where the panic rushes back in.
Oh, absolutely.
The script is broken, and they don't know how to process the new reality.
It is the moment of maximum vulnerability because you are forced to process unexpected data and formulate a new strategy in real time.
Which brings the cortisol right back.
But just like everything else, native speakers do not invent new sentences for this. We use a deeply entrenched cultural chunk to handle unavailability, and it's designed to be as gentle as possible.
When the target is missing, what is the exact phrase the person answering the phone will deploy to deliver that bad news?
You will almost universally hear this specific chunk. I'm afraid she's not available right now.
Okay, we need to pause the deep dive right here because this phrase, I'm afraid, causes an immense amount of logical confusion for learners.
I can imagine.
Because if a learner translates this directly, they hear the word afraid, which means feeling fear or terror.
Right.
And they think, why is the receptionist terrified? Is there an emergency? Is Sarah in physical danger? It seems absurd to inject raw fare into a simple scheduling conflict.
This is a perfect example of how cultural values warp vocabulary.
Yeah.
In conversational Anglo-English, the phrase, I'm afraid, has been completely divorced from the emotion of terror.
Totally a divorce.
Yes, it is a mitigation tool. It is a linguistic shock absorber.
So nobody's life is in danger.
Nobody is scared. English speakers are historically very uncomfortable with delivering direct, blunt negativity. We don't like saying a flat no, and we don't like telling people they can't have what they want.
So we fake it.
We develop this habit of faking a mild emotional distress to show sympathy. I'm afraid simply means unfortunately, or I possess bad news that I am sorry to deliver.
It is a polite padding around the reality that you cannot get what you want. It's an empathy reflex. I'm afraid she's not available. Just translates to unfortunately she is not available. That clears up so much anxiety.
It's a very useful chunk to know.
Now, let's look at the second half of that chunk, the word available. What is the functional utility of that word in corporate or casual scheduling?
Available is a brilliantly versatile piece of vocabulary.
Yeah.
Literally, it means free to engage or not busy.
Right.
But functionally, it acts as a privacy shield. If someone is stuck in a tense meeting, if they're in the restroom, if they're having a breakdown in the break room, or if they just went home early, They're simply not available.
It saves you from having to broadcast someone's personal logistics. You don't say, Sarah is currently chewing a sandwich in the cafeteria.
No, never.
You just deploy the shield. Sarah is not available.
Exactly. It maintains professional distance while providing all the necessary information.
Let's solidify this with a practical role play. I want to demonstrate the rhythm of this exchange. I am going to call you, ask for a target, and I want you to practice deploying the empathy reflex and the privacy shield, and then bridge to the next logical step offering help.
I am ready.
Ring, ring. Hello, this is Jack. Could I speak to Mr. Davis, please?
Hello, Jack. I'm afraid he's not available right now. Can I take a message?
That was incredibly smooth. I'm afraid he's not available right now. Can I take a message? It acknowledges the failure, softens it, and immediately proposes a solution.
It keeps the conversation moving forward.
Let's explore that solution. Can I take a message? We are moving into the data transfer phase of the call.
Yes, the dynamic of the call has fundamentally changed. You are no longer trying to connect with a person. You are now trying to dictate precise information to a third party.
Which means we need to slow down.
Yes, it requires a sharp decrease in speed and a high focus on accuracy.
If I am the caller and my target is unavailable, my primary goal is usually to get them to initiate a call back to me when they are free. How do I engineer that request without sounding like I am giving orders to the receptionist? I can't just say, tell him to call me. That strips away all the politeness we just discussed.
It does. Tell him to call me is an imperative command. It positions you above the receptionist and above Mr. Davis.
Which is rude.
Highly. To maintain the collaborative, polite tone, we use another modal verb chunk. Could you ask him to call me back?
Or, if the target is female, could you ask her to call me back?
Exactly.
Let's dissect the architecture of that chunk. We start with could you, which is our polite request for permission. Then, crucially, we use ask him, not tell him.
Right. You are requesting that the receptionist make a request on your behalf.
It's layers of politeness stacked on top of each other. Could you ask him to call me back? It is a masterpiece of corporate diplomacy.
And once you deploy that polite request, the receptionist is obligated to say yes, and then they need the data.
The number.
They will inevitably say, certainly, what's your number? And this brings us to one of the most mechanically stressful tasks for any language learner: dictating strings of numbers in real time.
Oh, dictating numbers causes massive anxiety because numbers in a foreign language often require extra processing time. When you are nervous, the difference between saying 14 and 40 can feel impossible to manage.
Absolutely.
You feel rushed, so you try to spit out a 10-digit phone number in one single breath.
That is the worst strategy.
Really?
If you rapidly say, my number is 987056221, the person on the other end is guaranteed to miss it.
They can't catch it all.
This isn't just a language issue. It is a limitation of human cognitive architecture. There is a famous psychological concept called Miller's Law, which suggests that the average human working memory can only hold about 7 items, plus or minus 2, at any given moment.
Oh, wow. Only 7.
You throw 10 numbers at someone without a break, their working memory buffer simply overflows. The data is lost.
So we have to hack the working memory of the listener. What is the physical technique to do that when speaking?
The technique is called chunking. It's applying the same concept we use for vocabulary to raw numbers.
Okay, how does it work for numbers?
You must group the digits into small, digestible sets, usually sets of 3 or 4, and insert a deliberate, distinct physical pause between each group.
Okay, give me an example.
For example, if your number is 555-898-1234, you do not treat it as a single 10-digit entity. You treat it as 3 separate entities.
How does it sound?
You say 555, pause, 898, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That 1-second pause is where the listener's brain encodes the numbers and their hand writes them down.
Exactly. The silence between the numbers is actually just as important as the numbers themselves. You're giving their brain permission to process.
Now let's look at the responsibility of the person taking the message. If I'm the assistant and I just wrote down those numbers, how do I guarantee that my working memory didn't betray me?
You have to generate what is essentially an auditory receipt. You must confirm the data.
What's the chunk for that?
And the most professional, reassuring chunk to initiate this is, let me read that back to you.
Let me read that back to you. It sounds incredibly competent. It tells the caller, I value accuracy and I am taking this seriously.
It builds instant trust.
Yeah.
You say, let me read that back to you, 555-898. You repeat the chunk numbers, allowing the caller to verify.
And once the data is verified, how do we seal the contract of the message? How do I reassure the caller that I'm not just going to throw this piece of paper in the trash?
You deliver a final chunk of reassurance. I'll make sure she gets the message.
I'll make sure she gets the message. Let's examine the verb gets in that chunk.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
In a classroom setting, learners are often taught that get means to physically fetch something, like a dog getting a stick, or to acquire something. How does it function here?
Get is a linguistic chameleon in English. It adapts to its surroundings. In this specific chunk, gets functions as a synonym for receives or is given.
Okay, so it's a promise.
You are making a professional promise. I will guarantee that she receives this information.
I want to extrapolate on this entire interaction for a moment. Think about the broader implications of leaving a highly structured message like this.
That's very powerful.
It's profound because it proves that you do not need an extensive, sophisticated vocabulary of complex business jargon to sound like a formidable professional.
Not at all.
If you simply control the pace, use clear chunks, could you ask him to call me back? Provide spaced out numbers and confirm with, let me read that back to you. You project massive competence.
Trust in the business world is not built on fancy vocabulary. It is built on reliable clarity.
That is a fundamental truth. But we also have to acknowledge reality. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, clarity completely collapses.
Oh, yes. It happens to everyone.
We need to explore the darkest corner of the telephone experience, a scenario I like to call total panic.
The worst case scenario.
This is when the problem isn't a missing person or a tricky number. The problem is that you are listening to the other person speak, and you realize with horror that you do not understand a single syllable of what they are saying.
Total acoustic failure.
The speed is blinding, the vocabulary is strange, or the electronic connection is degrading, and you are entirely lost at sea.
This is the ultimate stress test. And the way learners traditionally handle this is deeply counterproductive.
I see this constantly. There is a massive psychological barrier here tied to shame.
Shame is a language killer.
When a learner stops understanding, their affective filter goes up. They feel deeply embarrassed. Their internal monologue says, oh no, my English is failing. They realize I'm an imposter. They are going to laugh at me. I have to hide my ignorance.
So what do?
So instead of stopping the conversation, they just fake it. They nod along on the phone saying, yes, right, okay, while internally they have absolutely no idea what they just agreed to.
Faking comprehension is the most dangerous thing you can do on a phone call.
It is.
Because it guarantees a failure of the actual mission. I want to offer a massive dose of reality to alleviate this shame. Native speakers fail to understand each other on the phone constantly.
Every single day.
It is an inherent flaw of the technology. Audio compression, wind hitting the microphone, cellular dead zones. These create a bad connection that mangles the audio signal.
Exactly. It's crucial to reframe the failure. It is not an intelligence problem, and it is usually not even a language problem. It is an environmental problem.
Well, technology failed, not your brain.
Because native speakers implicitly understand that the technology is flawed, they have zero shame about interrupting to ask for repetition.
You must give yourself permission to politely halt the flow of information. Let's analyze a classic high-stress scenario to illustrate this, the delivery driver scenario.
Oh, this is universally terrifying for learners.
A delivery driver calls you. They're standing on a busy street corner. Massive trucks are accelerating behind them. They are looking at 5 different packages. They are highly stressed, and they speak with incredibly fast, compressed speech.
Just a blur of words.
You pick up the phone, and they blast you with this. Hey, this is Dave from Delivery. I got a package for you, 40 Maple Street, your address.
It's an acoustic nightmare. It just registers as one long, aggressive blast of noise.
In that moment of panic, let's look at the weak language choices a learner might default to.
If their brain freezes, they might blurt out, "What?" or "I don't understand you." Let's break down why those are strategically poor choices.
Saying what is a knee-jerk reaction, but it is dangerously abrupt. It sounds confrontational, almost as if you are accusing them of saying something offensive.
Right, and saying "I don't understand you" is a surrender.
Exactly. It frames the failure as a deficit in your own cognitive ability. It sounds like a personal confession of weakness.
We want to upgrade this to a chunk that blames the environment, not the speaker or the listener.
The premier chunk for this exact moment is, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I love the imagery of that metaphor. It treats the spoken words as physical objects, like a baseball thrown through the air.
You missed the catch.
You aren't saying you are too stupid to understand the rules of baseball. You were just saying, hey, the wind blew, and I missed the physical object. Throw it again.
It removes the sting of failure. It is entirely neutral. I didn't catch that. It stops a conversation gracefully.
But you can't just leave it there.
No, you must immediately direct them on how to fix the problem. You follow it up with an action request.
Okay, could you repeat that, please?
Or, if the velocity of their speech was the main issue, you address the speed directly. Could you speak a little slower, please?
Let's weave that into a complete defensive sequence. If I get hit with that wall of sound from the driver, I take a breath and I say, I'm sorry I didn't catch that. Could you speak a little slower, please?
You must say it with grounded confidence.
Do not apologize for your English. You are the client, you are the recipient of the package, and you have every right to demand that the information be delivered at a decipherable speed.
Never let the pace of someone else's anxiety dictate your comprehension.
That is incredibly empowering. We have survived the bad connection and the panic delivery driver. Now, let's pivot to the core reason a vast majority of functional phone calls are made. We pick up the phone to organize our physical reality.
We are making appointments, confirming plans, and navigating schedules.
Navigating time requires immense precision. Let's begin by defining the parameters with 3 essential pieces of vocabulary regarding scheduling.
The first, and perhaps most misunderstood, is appointment.
Let's clarify that. In many languages, there is only one word for any kind of gathering or meeting. How does English differentiate an appointment from a casual meeting? If I am meeting my best friend at a cafe for a coffee, do I have a coffee appointment?
Absolutely not. Using the word appointment for a friend sounds incredibly stiff and almost strange.
What does it actually mean?
Appointment is a formal, highly structured word. It implies a contractual block of time reserved for professional service or consultation. You make an appointment with a doctor, a dentist, an immigration lawyer, or an accountant.
But for friends?
For friends or colleagues, you simply have a meeting or plans.
That distinction prevents a lot of awkward phrasing. The second vital word is an adjective, convenient.
Convenient is the golden word of scheduling. It means that an event or a time slot fits seamlessly into your life without causing friction, stress, or disruption.
If a time is convenient, it works harmoniously with your existing obligations.
Exactly. And the third essential word is a verb, confirm.
To confirm is to verify that a previously made plan is still accurate and valid.
It is the act of double-checking reality before you commit physical effort to traveling to a location.
So we have our toolkit: appointment, convenient, and confirm. How do we initiate the formal act of blocking out time? What is the opening move?
You state your objective with absolute clarity using this chunk. I'd like to schedule an appointment.
I'd like to schedule an appointment. It is direct and professional, but immediately after you say that, you enter what I like to call the time dance.
The time dance.
You have a schedule, the receptionist has a schedule, and you have to find where they overlap. It is a negotiation. How do we perform this dance without stepping on each other's toes?
The receptionist will usually initiate the negotiation by asking, what time works for you?
That's a good one.
This is a brilliant, highly common native chunk.
Here?
Works for you is an idiomatic way of asking, is convenient for your life and schedule.
What time works for you? Now, I can propose a specific time. I might ask, does 3 p.m. work for you?
Exactly. You bounce the idiom back, and if the stars align and the schedule is open, the response is effortless. Yes, 3 p.m. works for me. Or, more enthusiastically, that's perfect.
But the stars rarely align on the first try. What happens when 3 p.m. is already taken? How do we reject a proposed time without sounding like we are rejecting the person or being difficult?
Because a blunt no, 3 p.m. is bad, feels abrasive.
Exactly.
You rely on the framework of polite mitigation again. You offer micro-apology. You state your unavailability to soften the rejection. And then, critically, you immediately offer an alternative to keep the momentum going.
What's the chunk?
The chunk is, I'm sorry, not available at 3 p.m. How about 4 p.m.?
I'm sorry, I'm not available at 3 p.m. How about 4 p.m.? It's a beautiful maneuver. You close one door but instantly open another. It ensures the conversation doesn't stall into silence.
Right. Now, I want to do an exercise here to prove a point about complexity. Let's pretend we are stepping away from the formal doctor's office and we just want to eat some food.
We are calling a restaurant.
Yes. I am going to play the role of a learner who has swallowed a dictionary and believes that big words equal good English.
I will be the restaurant. Ring, ring. Hello, Luigi's Italian.
Greetings. I require a reservation for my family unit to consume dinner at your establishment this evening.
Okay, let's freeze the scenario right there. Look at the architectural bloat of that sentence. You were utilizing words like require, consume, and establishment. You sound like a legal document from the 1800s.
This is way too much.
Let's apply our core philosophy. Strip away the heavy vocabulary and try to communicate that exact same desire, but this time in a shorter, clearer, more modern way.
If I strip away the dictionary words,
Yeah.
how about, I'd like to book a table for tonight, please.
Flawless. I'd like to book a table for tonight, please. It takes a third of the time, and it sounds infinitely more natural.
This is a cardinal rule of spoken English, particularly on the phone. Complexity is not a sign of fluency. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Simpler is always better. And speaking of simplicity, that provides a perfect bridge to my absolute favorite category of telephone interaction, the microcall.
The fast confirmations.
Yes, the microcall. There is a deeply held belief among learners that a real phone call has to be a 5-minute negotiation covering multiple topics.
But real life doesn't work that way. A vast percentage of phone calls are simply highly compressed data exchanges that last maybe 15 seconds.
I want to highlight a psychological trap that learners fall into regarding this. Many people studying English think that to genuinely practice, they must engage in deep, philosophical, intimidating conversations.
They think if a call is short, it was a failure, or it didn't count as practice.
That mindset actively damages your progress. We have to look at the neuroscience of habit formation. Fluency is built on small, repeated dopamine hits of success.
A 15-second call where you successfully communicate one vital piece of information without panicking is not a failure, it is a massive, neurologically significant victory.
It trains your brain that English is a tool that works, not a trap that causes pain. You
Yep.
do not need to deliver a monologue to be a successful communicator.
What does the anatomy of a microcall actually look like? How do we keep it so short without being rude?
You set the expectation the moment the person answers. You use a framing chunk to warn them that this will be brief.
You say, just a quick call?
This phrase tells the other person's brain, do not settle into your chair, do not prepare for a long chat, I only need 10 seconds of your bandwidth.
Hey, just a quick call. It is highly respectful of their time.
Once the frame is set, you deliver the confirmation statement. For example, we're still meeting at the cinema at 5, right? They process it instantly and reply, yes.
You close the loop. Great. See you then. Bye.
That is the entire interaction.
That is the whole call. 15 seconds from start to finish. You retrieved the language, you executed the pronunciation, you decoded their response, and you achieved your real-world goal.
You lived your life effectively in English. That is the definition of fluency.
That completely demystifies the process. It takes so much pressure off the learner's shoulders.
Okay, let's review our timeline. We navigated the initial panic, we answered correctly, we asked for our target, we handled the roadblocks, we booked the appointment, and we confirmed the cinema.
The mission, whatever it was, has been accomplished.
But now, we arrive at what might be the most culturally dangerous phase of the entire operation, the exit. How do you escape the gravitational pull of the conversation without seeming abrasive?
This is a profound roadblock for learners because the rules of exiting a conversation vary so wildly across different global cultures.
In many cultures, once the business is concluded, the call is over. You simply stop talking.
But a lot of English learners hit this wall where they have finished their sentence, they don't know how to transition, so they just endure a second of painful silence, say a flat bye, and then hang up.
Let's explicitly define the mechanics of hang up.
To hang up is the phrasal verb meaning to physically terminate the electronic connection, usually by pressing the red button on your screen.
Right, so a learner finishes their thought, says bye, and hits the red button. To someone from a highly direct culture, that seems efficient. Why does that trigger alarms for a native English speaker?
Because in Anglo-cultural norms, abruptly cutting the connection is perceived as hostile. It feels aggressive.
Ending a conversation in English is not a sudden stop. It is a highly ritualized process.
You don't just slam on the brakes, you have to gently glide the airplane down to the runway. We require a gentle landing.
To achieve this, native speakers unconsciously utilize a formalized 3-step exit to gracefully disentangle themselves from the interaction.
A 3-step exit.
I am a huge advocate for behavioral frameworks. It gives us a map out of the maze. What is the architecture of these 3 steps?
Step 1 is the appreciation phase. You must retroactively validate the interaction that just occurred.
You start by saying, thank you for your help.
Or if it was a social call with a friend, you say, it was really nice talking to you.
Yeah.
This signals that the active business is concluded and the wrap-up phase has begun.
Step 1, appreciation. Thank you for your help. It acts as a transitional marker. What is the psychological function of step 2?
Step 2 is the justification phase.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot just leave. You must provide a socially acceptable reason for why your presence is being withdrawn.
And here is where we find one of the most brilliant, culturally specific secrets of conversational English. The ultimate polite chunk for this phase is, well, I should let you go.
Well, I should let you go. I want to put that phrase under a microscope because it is a psychological magic trick.
Let's really analyze what is happening there. Why do native speakers say that when they're the ones who want to end the call?
It is a masterpiece of reciprocal altruism. Sociolinguists refer to this as managing positive face, the desire to be liked and to show consideration for others.
If I say I am leaving now, it centers my needs and makes it seem like I am bored with you.
But if I say, I should let you go, I am performing a verbal judo flip. I am taking the burden of the exit and framing it as an act of immense generosity toward you.
The subtext is, I know you are a highly important person with a very busy schedule, and I am so considerate that I will sacrifice my own desire to keep talking to you just so you can get back to your vital tasks.
It is a beautiful, polite fiction that everyone agrees to play along with.
It is entirely altruistic. I am the one desperate to get off the phone and eat my lunch, but I frame it as, I must free you from this call. It is pure conversational magic.
Now, could I use a more direct chunk there? Could I just say, I have to go now?
Yes, I have to get back to work or I have to run now are completely acceptable and functional. But I should let you go remains the absolute gold standard for demonstrating high-level cultural fluency and empathy.
So we have step 1, appreciation, thank you. Step 2, justification, I should let you go. What is the final maneuver in step 3?
Step 3 is the formal dismissal. This is where you actually speak the terminal words that authorize the hanging up of the phone.
You pair a future intent with a goodbye, talk to you soon, goodbye, or simply goodbye.
We need to let the listener hear how this flows in real time. Let's run a full simulation of the 3-step exit.
We will pick up right after we successfully scheduled my appointment for Tuesday. You are the receptionist. Walk me through the landing sequence.
Understood. Okay, so we are all set and confirmed for Tuesday at 3 p.m.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your help today.
You're very welcome. We look forward to seeing you.
Well, I should let you go so you can get back to your other calls.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Do you hear how elegant that is? It is a perfectly choreographed dance. No one feels rushed, no one feels dismissed, and the connection is severed with mutual respect.
Appreciation, justification, dismissal. Once you become aware of that 3-step rhythm, it is like seeing the Matrix. You will notice every single native English speaker using it on television, in podcasts, and in the real world.
All right, we have successfully charted the entire life cycle of the English telephone experience. We analyzed the initial cortisol spike, the cognitive load of translation, the necessity of Lego block chunks, navigating bad acoustic connections, the time dance of scheduling, and the altruistic art of the polite exit.
But we have to address the final and most crucial hurdle. Consuming this information intellectually is only 10% of the battle.
How does a learner sitting alone in their room right now actually migrate this linguistic data from their cerebral cortex into the physical muscles of their vocal tract?
That is the ultimate barrier to fluency. Confidence is not a prerequisite for speaking. Confidence is the byproduct of speaking.
You cannot wait on the couch until you magically feel brave enough to make a call. You have to physically train your mouth to make the sounds until the fear subsides.
Exactly. The vocal cords are muscles. They require reps. And that is why we have engineered a highly specific, actionable practice protocol for you today.
We call it the 7-Day Speaking Challenge. It is designed to be executed completely alone, systematically building your neuromotor connections over a week.
I want to emphasize that speaking to yourself in an empty room is deeply valid, scientifically proven practice. It lowers your affective filter to 0 because there is no one there to judge you. You are simply training the hardware of your body to run the software of English.
What is the structural breakdown of this 7-day protocol? Here is the blueprint. Commit to this for 1 week.
Day 1, passive intake.
I want you to listen to this entire deep dive one more time. Do not touch a pen. Do not try to memorize anything. Just wash your brain in the audio. Listen to the cadence, the rhythm, and the melody of how we interact.
Day 2, data extraction.
Replay the audio, but this time, become an active investigator. Take a notepad and write down 8 distinct chunks that we analyzed. Isolate phrases like, this is Jack, could you ask her to call me back or I should let you go?
Day 3, physical shadowing.
This is where the physical work begins. Take your list of 8 chunks, stand physically in front of a mirror to watch your own mouth move, and speak them out loud. Try to perfectly mimic the intonation and the linking. Remember, this is Jack. Do this until your jaw literally feels tired.
Day 4, spontaneous generation.
Put the notes away. Go for a walk or stand in your kitchen and talk out loud to yourself for 2 unbroken minutes about the concept of making a phone call. Explain what you learned as if you are trying to convince a friend. Do not stop if you make a grammar mistake. Just keep the vocal momentum going.
Day 5. Audio feedback.
We live in the future. Use your technology. Open the Voice Memo app on your smartphone. Record yourself delivering the 3-step exit from memory. Then, subject yourself to the uncomfortable process of listening to your own recorded voice.
It's rough, but it works.
Analyze it objectively. Notice where your rhythm breaks, where you hesitate, or where you drop your consonants.
Day 6. Concept simplification.
This is a profound cognitive test. Try to retell the entire philosophy of this deep dive to yourself, but force yourself to use the most basic, beginner-level vocabulary possible. Explain the Lego block chunk theory as if you were teaching it to a 10-year-old child. If you can simplify a complex concept, it means you have truly mastered it.
Day 7. The simulation.
Hold a dynamic, two-sided mini conversation with yourself in your room. Play the role of the caller and the receptionist. Move physically from one side of the room to the other if you have to. Force your brain to rapidly switch between the different chunks we've discussed.
That protocol is neurologically rigorous. If you execute those 7 steps, you are actively rewiring the neural pathways related to English speech production. I guarantee that when your actual phone rings on day 8, the cortisol spike will be significantly lower and your mouth will know exactly what to do.
That is the ultimate goal. So as we initiate our own gentle landing for this session, let's consolidate the core philosophies we have explored today.
We traversed a massive amount of linguistic and psychological territory. We established that the phone removes visual context, causing natural panic, which we combat by abandoning word-for-word translation in favor of prefabricated language chunks.
You learned the acoustic importance of the rising hello to establish a connection. You discovered how to use modal verbs to transform demands into polite requests.
We explored the cultural mechanism of using emotional padding like, "I'm afraid to mitigate logistical bad news." We discussed the cognitive limits of working memory and how to hack it by pausing between numbers.
You learned how to reframe a failure of comprehension from a personal flaw to an environmental reality by saying, "I didn't catch that." And finally, you learned the altruistic choreography of the 3-step exit to gracefully sever the connection.
The overarching thesis is that natural fluency is built on simple, reliable blocks of language, not complex, agonizing grammar equations.
It is a complete tactical survival kit for the audio realm. We genuinely hope that this deep dive has dismantled some of the fear surrounding the ringing phone, and that you feel armed and prepared to project your true competence into the world.
If you found this framework valuable, and if you want to continue systematically upgrading your spoken English alongside us, please make sure you subscribe to English on Mic and leave a like on this video so we can continue producing this kind of deep analytical content for you. Your interaction is the engine that keeps this project moving forward.
As we depart, I want to leave you with one final, slightly philosophical concept to process as you move through your day. We spent a significant amount of time analyzing how the telephone brutally strips away your visual identity.
It erases your posture, your fashion, your smile, and your eye contact.
But I want you to view that not as a loss, but as a unique transformation. In the isolated vacuum of a phone call, your physical body vanishes, and your voice assumes the entire weight of your existence.
Your intonation, your clarity, and your chunks literally become your personality.
So I ask you to consider, when you answer the phone tomorrow, what kind of presence do you want to manifest? Do you want your audio avatar to sound panicked, chaotic, and demanding? Or do you want to intentionally project a presence that is clear, empathetic, polite, and undeniably confident?
The words you choose to practice today will define who you are in the ears of the world tomorrow.
Your voice is the only reality they have. That is a profound responsibility, but also an incredible opportunity. Go run your shadowing drills, take a deep breath, pick up that phone, and let the world hear exactly how capable your English voice truly is. Thank you for spending your time with us on this deep dive, and we look forward to talking to you in the next one. Goodbye.